Hello and welcome back to WhiteLinesFootball. Lewis again here today, back for another podcast. Now, I say another podcast, but obviously we've had a little while off, so this is the return, the much anticipated return of the WhiteLinesFootball podcast. And we've also got a couple of special guests. It's been a long time coming. From our partners, the League One podcast, we have Danny. How are you doing?
Hello, you alright?
Yeah, I'm good, thanks. And we have Nathan, also of the League One podcast. How are you doing, Nathan?
Hello.
Yeah, the much anticipated podcast is back. We didn't manage to get Ibs or Jack on today, but we've got the next best thing, which is the boys from the League One podcast. So we're going to start off today with sort of the big managerial news of the week. Obviously, probably a long time coming, but Ronald Koeman has lost his job at Everton. Obviously, they sort of spunked a lot of money in the summer. I think it was close to £200 million. They lost heavily to Arsenal at the weekend, 5-2. 18th in the table. Danny, sort of obviously worked out well for him at Southampton. There were rumours of him in the summer actually taking the Barcelona job. So why did it go wrong at Everton?
I don't even know, I don't get why it's gone so wrong. Like, you look at the players that he's brought in, and he's brought in some solid players. Like, defensive wise, he's got Keane, and he's quality. You've got Pickford in there. A solid keeper, especially if you play FIFA, Pickford, he's a little bit of a beast. You know what I mean? They brought in quality players, and I don't know why it's not working. Now, obviously, we're from League One background, so I'm obviously not going to try and mention League One as much, because obviously this is Premiership, but it's kind of in the same way of, like, Bury Football Club. The fact that they've got these great players, but they're just struggling to get results. And, I don't know, like... It's like when they played Arsenal and they lost 5-2. Like, I don't know what happened. Like, I mean, I guess Arsenal, there was a lot of pressure on them. They had to get a result. They've got the fans on the back, especially after last season. And they didn't get off to a great start this season. So, they've got a lot of fans still on the back and stuff like that. So, Arsenal had to ensure that there was a good performance there. But Everton, it just crumbled as a team. And I feel like they need to gel a bit more. Definitely, because like it's just not working for them, and I feel like the players need to be able to work well with each other and stuff like that to get results. You can't just throw a few players together and hope for the best. I mean, like I mentioned, Bury Football Club not doing well in League One, got all these mad sick players, and they're currently in relegation zone. So it just shows that even though you've got these good players and you spend near enough 200 million in the transfer window, it's just not even it's not gonna fix all your problems. Like, you've got to ensure, like when Rooney went back to Everton, everyone was like, "Oh, Everton are gonna do well." And I mean, last season Everton did really well. So it's kind of like a massive shock to see them doing so bad. Like, it's mad. I mean,
So do you think it's sort of the fact that they have so many new players, like you're suggesting? Happened to Spurs, happened to Liverpool, like you're saying, happened with Bury. But do you think it's that, or do you think the fact that they've invested in the wrong areas? Like, they didn't replace Lukaku. Obviously, that's where they got the money from mainly. But they didn't bring in that striker. I mean, they got Sandro, they got Rooney, but the guy that's going to get you sort of 20 plus goals a season, like Lukaku, they ended up bringing back Nias, who Koeman sort of completely abandoned, and they sort of brought in like Ramirez, who could play off the striker, Rooney, sort of probably better deeper now later on in his career, Sigurdsson, and they just sort of clumped together a massive bunch of attacking players and tried to play them together. Or do you think it is simply because there's so many new players?
No, I mean, definitely, when you've got players such as Lukaku, that used to play for you and pretty much helped with the season, there's certainly... You need to be able to, if you're going to get rid of him, you need a suitable replacement, and having Wayne Rooney as the replacement, it's not working. I mean, Wayne Rooney's getting on in his career. Yeah, he can score goals, and he's proven that he can still score goals. But I guess in the way, like, they haven't managed to, they've not recruited in the correct areas. I get that to a certain extent, but then again, I do just believe that it's the fact that he's got all these players and they've all just been thrown in together, and like they don't know how to play off each other. Because I feel like with that team, if you get them to gel really well with that team, and you get them to do some good football, honestly, I reckon they could easily be in top 6. Like, easily. I mean, you've got players such as Rooney. I mean, like I said, he's getting on in his career, but he's still a great player. Like, and then you've got Sigurdsson, another class player. You know, a young up and coming goalkeeper in Pickford. So that was a brilliant signing. And then Burnley's Keane, another great player. I feel like they've certainly done well with the signings, but they've not replaced that Lukaku.
I think that looking on the surface, I mean, we did our Premier League predictions on the channel at the start of the season. I think looking at the surface, Everton do have a good squad. I mean, maybe it lacks a little bit of pace, but you're not going to say it's a bad squad. And like you say, I was, especially after sort of Koeman sort of was a bit renowned for setting up teams very well defensively, and I was picking my fantasy football team, and I was like, Pickford's a must, in goal, good keeper, and a solid defensive team. So do you think if they did have more time, then Koeman would be able to get the best out of them? So maybe sort of they got mid-table this season, do you think they'd be able to push on a lot more next season because they'd have gelled more?
Yeah, definitely. If they'd got off to a better start, and obviously he kept his job, I feel like the season after that, he would have got his bearings a lot more, seen how the team's performed, and then if needed, bring in the additional signings that need to be made to improve the squad further. But definitely, I feel like the players would know how each other The problem when you watch Everton, they just look clueless at points.
Yeah.
They generally just don't know what to do.
Yeah. And
it just you watch this game of football where it just slowly collapses.
Yeah.
It's a bit like Jenga. Once one person makes a mistake, the whole thing collapses.
Yeah.
Because the team doesn't know how to bounce back from that, or how to cover someone and stuff like that, because they're not used to playing with each other. So I mean, obviously it's just for any team when they bring in a certain amount of players and that, but the fact that Everton are relying on these players to get results is what kind of highlights how poor they've been.
Yeah, I think it's also because they sort of bought in a whole new team, and not every when we saw Tottenham with the Bale money, the only real success from that is Eriksen, maybe Lamela, but not every single player is going to be a good signing, so it's sort of a rebuilding process. But Nathan, we sort of know how football clubs work. It's not always the manager has full control of what's going on. Do you think obviously the board have invested £200 million 10 games or so into the season, Koeman's gone. Do you think it's partly the board's fault that they sort of trusted Koeman with the money, sort of what they've done with the money and what they've done transfer-wise, or do you think it is sort of Koeman and his tactics and what he's done with the players?
I think definitely a mix of both. I think if you look at the fixtures that Everton have played, they've played a lot of the tough teams. They've played City, Tottenham, United, Arsenal and Chelsea. So you've got a good, a lot of the top 7 teams there. And although, they've lost a lot of them games, you'd expect them to maybe pick up a couple of points, but did beat Stoke. They did get a draw against Brighton, and you're kind of looking at that, maybe is it a case of if they had a good run of games against some of the mid-table teams, would they have got results? And you think, well, they should have got a result against Brighton, who were one of the favourites to go down. And they lost against Burnley, who, yes, they are a solid team, but you've got to be getting results, especially at home. So it's
to be fair, though, Burnley are doing bits.
They are doing really.
It's mad, getting a result against teams like Chelsea and stuff like this.
Exactly, but you'd expect them to get at least a point, maybe. And the problem is when you get rid of Lukaku, who has scored so many goals, and replacing him with Wayne Rooney, who is past his best. Yeah, he could do a job in midfield, but as a striker, what is he, 31, 32? He can't do that anymore. So yeah, he might be able to chip in with 10 goals, but 10 goals is not going to get you into the top 6 or top 7 when he's your main striker. As a secondary striker, maybe, but not as a top. Not as your main choice as a striker. Yeah,
especially replacing Lukaku. So you basically reckon it's whoever's brought the players in, basically, because they haven't invested properly, is what you're saying?
Yeah, but then again, it's hard to replace a striker of Lukaku's quality.
Yeah.
But then they have spent 200 million. You could have spent 60 million on a top class striker, or at least 40 million, something like that. But then it's a difficult one, really. When Wayne Rooney came, I think that's more of I don't think Koeman really wanted him. I think that's more of a commercial decision that Everton can say, we've had England's greatest striker on stats, maybe not as actually it's hard to compare eras, but you could say Wayne Rooney has been a good player, really, really good player.
Yeah.
Over the past 10 years, his career hasn't gone in the same way as you would have hoped. Messi and Ronaldo, they're in their 30s now. They're still at the top level, but Wayne Rooney's playing still Premier League football, still good, but not at that level, obviously, that Ronaldo and Messi are at. So I think that's more of a commercial decision to sell shirts and stuff.
Yeah, especially because of how he was at Everton as a youngster, came back, sort of thing.
Yeah. That type of decision. But I don't know. I feel like Koeman lost the dressing room, especially.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've seen it, but the way that he treated Niasse, is it?
Yeah.
The fact that he didn't give him a locker, took his squad number off him, forced him into the under-21, didn't give him a locker there, told him, you're not allowed to eat with us, you have to, basically excluded him to the youngsters. And that's an awful way to treat someone. I don't think he's done anything wrong. Yeah, he might not be good enough, but you sit down and have a chat and say, I don't think you're good enough, but you could go to the Championship on loan, or go to here, loan or permanent transfer. You don't exclude them like that. That's quite a bullyish thing. And if he's been trying to do that to some of the Everton players, they can just turn around and say, well, I'm not playing for you, and get him sacked. Because let's think about it. They go to work. If you were going to work and you were being bullied by your boss, would you put 100% in?
No,
I know I wouldn't.
No.
So I think that's probably, maybe his attitude towards the players, I think that could have been a factor in his in the poor results.
Yeah, I think when I can't off the top of my head remember who it was against, but Niasse came in and he got the goals that sort of probably this season kept Koeman in a job for a little longer. And last season obviously he did go on loan to Hull, but the way Koeman treated him, like you say, all the examples, like that Niasse sounded like a good enough guy to just sort of like take it on the chin, but the rest of the players might have different attitudes to that. But obviously Koeman is gone now, which means someone else has got to come in. David Unsworth taking charge of the game against Chelsea tonight as we speak. But in terms of the odds, a few names being thrown around. Obviously only talk at the minute. David Unsworth, obviously in caretaker charge, is the favourite at the minute, 3-1, followed by Sean Dyche at 5-1. Thomas Tuchel, that's a big name, 6-1. Marco Silva at 8-1, and Sam Allardyce at 10-1. Nathan, you're a big admirer of Burnley, I know, and certain defenders in the squad. Would you think of Sean Dyche possibly going to Merseyside?
I think what Dyche is doing at Burnley, he's got a good little project that he's been doing for the past couple of years. I think when they got relegated a couple of years ago and he didn't get sacked, I think that shows that the faith that the Burnley board have in Dyche, and I think he should repay that. And I think they're on a good run. They're in the top half of the Premier League. I think that if I were him, even though yes, there'd probably be more money to spend at Everton and more money in contracts, Koeman spent a lot of money, and look where that's got him. So I think that he should stay at Burnley and just go for the next couple of years. I'm not going to say he's going to be manager of Arsenal like the idiots on Match of the Day were saying, but realistically, possibly, if they keep this run up, maybe not a lower mid-table finish like they have been doing recently, but a top 10 finish is possible, I'd say, this season, if they can keep building and just keep being a solid team.
Ryan Giggs has come out and said that he's interested in the Everton job and the Leicester job. Obviously, he's basically trying to get every top job he can get at the minute. Doesn't really fancy going down the leagues to do that. But Danny, any names that stick out from the list? I mean, we've got more names like Ancelotti, Moyes. Moyes could be back at Everton. What do you reckon?
No, I can't see it. I can't. Well, maybe, I don't know, right? Because like the way I think about it, right, is like I try and kind of like looking back at the Keith Hill kind of thing. Keith Hill went away, wasn't successful at Barnsley, came back to Rochdale, and then bam, got us promoted again. So maybe like, Moisey is meant to be for Everton. I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to like I don't know, like obviously in previous jobs they've just not gone well. United. I mean that was something, and then obviously Sunderland.
Could you compare that maybe David Moyes at Everton to John Sheridan at Oldham in that type of it will only work at Oldham or only work at Everton? Or could you say that maybe that was Moyes' best managerial era, kind of like Sheridan's 2007 to 2009 era was good, but then at other clubs he hasn't done as good? Do you think that could be what has happened?
I feel like he was a bit like at Sunderland he was just so outdated, and for some reason Ferguson recommended him for Man United job. But I feel like at Everton they were never like a great team, but now you always feel like they could challenge with the players they've got. So I suppose there's an argument for that Moyes was underachieving, and obviously the fact he's just got Sunderland absolutely disgracefully relegated, that they'll be mad to appoint him, especially trust him with that much like sort of that value of player. But
it just seemed to kind of work at Everton though. Like there was like a clear understanding of what they aimed to do. You know what I mean? There was a clear understanding. You know, Everton were always seen as a side that would never, like you said, you know, be up there with the contenders, but they were a team that you had to set up correctly against to ensure you could get a result. And I mean, I'm not saying that's not them this season, because obviously we're not that far into it and the manager's already been sacked, so you can't really tell. But going to Everton, you're going to be fairly confident in the fact that if you at least stick 2 goals past them, Everton are going to crumble, and you could end up with an Arsenal score essentially.
Yeah.
I mean, going back to the Dyche thing, I think that again, kind of like he'll stay at Burnley, and I feel like he'll make Burnley a top contending team in years to come. Like, I don't know, like a bit like what you said, Burnley got relegated back to the Championship and they were there for a season and went back up.
Yeah.
Like, there's clear, like, the players understand the manager, what the manager wants, and the manager understands how the players work and knows how to get the best out of them. And that's clearly evident when you see managers who have lost players, such as, you know, Sunderland last year, Bury currently, Everton. You know, when a manager doesn't he knows what he wants but doesn't know how to achieve that, it's very evident in the way they play. But Burnley, they're fearless. Like we mentioned, they go to places like Chelsea and get a result. Like, when that happened, everyone was a bit confused at, like, what's going on with Burnley? Why are they... Last season, they won 1 away game or 2 or something like that. It's mad.
Yeah.
And this season, they're killing it. Like, they are doing really well. And I feel like Dyche will stay at Burnley for many years to come. I think the board are comfortable with him. He's comfortable with the board. You know, I reckon he'll have a really good say in what goes on at the club, within the club, how he wants things going, and stuff like that. I feel like there's a clear understanding between everyone at Burnley, and I can honestly see Burnley becoming a really, really strong football team.
Yeah, it will be interesting. I mean, I don't think it'd be a bad appointment, but obviously we'll see where the owners go. So next, we're gonna sort of branch out into a little bit of international football. Don't turn off because it's not the normal dreaded international break, but the under-17s team for England are doing a bit alright today. Got a 3-1 win over Brazil. Some headlines that we've beat Brazil in the World Cup. Okay. We're going to face Spain on tomorrow, but it's actually Saturday and we're not recording it on Friday. So they got the 3-1 win. A little starlet. Now, I don't know if you two caught the game, but a little starlet by the name of Ryan Brewster scored a hat-trick for England. He's at Liverpool. Danny, are we gonna sort of walk into a little bit where he gets overhyped and becomes the next Adnan Januzaj?
To be honest, mate, like, you can already see that it's going to get overhyped. Like, you know, we can already see that happening. I mean, with the amount of publicity and, like, the fact that the England team are doing so shocking.
Yeah.
And, like, everyone kind of expects the England team to not, like, well, not expect, like, we all go to the World Cup or Euros and we're like, oh, you know what, looking at this team, we're going to do bits, and then we'll get turned over by Iceland and it's just, like, sick. So,
imminent next
personally,
year.
I think the fact that they're doing bits and quite clearly, you know, playing for the country, I don't know if you're all swearing, but yeah, you know, playing for the country, unlike some games we've seen, especially in the Euros. I mean, it's certainly going to get overhyped. Like I said, it was only under 17s, so they've still got a long time to progress and turn into even better footballers, and hopefully one day can do the country proud. But yeah, no, him himself will get overhyped. He'll be the New England's saviour or hero. He'll get pushed way too far up his career before he'll be running in before he can walk, and then he'll flop, and that's just where I can see that going.
Yeah, that's probably fair enough. But he'd been playing for the obviously at Liverpool. He'd been playing for the under-23s quite a bit, and he's only 17 years old, so he must have something about him.
He's got potential, yeah, definitely, but I feel like you've got to nurture his potential correctly.
Yeah, I see what you're saying.
If you push him out into the boat too much, then he's going to flop, I reckon.
Would you argue Liverpool doing that with Ben Woodburn then? Because he's sort of, 18, 19, and he scored against that famous goal against Leeds, I think it was, for Liverpool. And he's been pushed into the Wales team already, and he's got a goal. He's just signed a new contract with Liverpool today, actually, and he's their sort of youth team captain under Steven Gerrard. But he's playing for Wales. Do you think that's too early, or do you think that it's fine because he's scored, but then you can't just take the risk assuming that they're going to score? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, personally, some players can handle it, some can't. Some players can take it all on board, and they like being pushed and pushed and pushed because they find it better to learn and stuff like that. But I mean, it comes to the point where when he stops scoring for Wales, okay, yeah, he got a goal, but when he stops, then the media starts crawling his back.
Yeah, and he's 18 years old, you know what I mean?
He's getting pushed and pushed and pushed, and then when he can't deliver because he's either, physically unable to because of his age and the players that he's coming up against, and stuff like that, the media then get on his back, and then, they start writing headlines saying how shocking he is, or, what a flop he was, and all that, and this fake hype gets built. That can knock a player's career massively. Yeah. So you've got to be very careful in how you push a player forward, because you can't let media soak them up.
Yeah.
Because, the Twitter and stuff like that, it can be so damaging to a football player.
Would you say that the media, even though they are sports journalists and football fans, do you think that they actually care about the actual results? And
they don't.
They might look. Would you? And looking back at the Sam Allardyce thing, now whether you thought he was a good manager for England or not, he got sacked because the journalists, they published a story and stuff like that about him. If let's say the journalists had, obviously they wouldn't do this because they won't make any money. If they'd gone to the FA and sneaked out under a door, that it could have been dealt in, it could be paid off and stuff like that, and it would have all got brushed away. Now, Sam Allardyce, you can say, is, whether you think he's good or bad, is much better than Gareth Southgate, who's just there, yes man, tick the boxes and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I would much rather have Allardyce, and I think that if the journalists and the media team didn't publicise it, I can easily see the FA swiping under. But as soon as it gets viewed all around, the FA are left with no choice but to take action. Because if they don't take action, then obviously everyone's going to see that they've not taken action, and then that just that is awful for them.
I think it depends a lot on what sort of journalist it is, because I think you see some journalists that are actually interested in analysing what's going on. Sort of, some of them are on YouTube. So Nico Morales has been on the channel a couple of times. He's a great journalist, and Christian Hennig is also a great journalist. And those sort of journalists are interested in actually analysing what's going on. So I think they'd be quite fair. But if you look at people like for the Daily Mirror, stuff like that, they're going to be more more interested in the headline rather than the analysis, so that could really get to the players.
Talking about young English players coming through the ranks, I know he gets used a lot as an example, but Dele Alli, right? He was at Milton Keynes and was there for 4 years, and could you say that playing lower league games in a League 1 or League 2 championship when you're younger, and not because Dele Alli didn't have a loan spell, he just was there for 4 years, played 62 games in the league.
He did go back on loan after he signed for Spurs, didn't he? But that was for 6 months or something.
Yeah, for half a season.
Yeah.
And just grinded, and he wasn't like he wasn't taken in by a Tottenham and then loaned out to this club for 6 months and then this club for another 6 months. Because do you think, right? Here's a question: do you think that he would have, if he had signed for Tottenham's academy in 2011 when he signed for Milton Keynes as a professional, and he was loaned out to Milton Keynes and got loaned out to Wimbledon, then got loaned out to Oldham, then to
Gillingham.
bloody Gills.
Yes.
Yeah, and then he played like 6 games here, 11 games here, 5 games here. How is that good for a player when all they're doing is they're moving between a new dressing room here, a new dressing room here, every couple of months, only playing a couple of games? When at MK Dons, he wasn't playing a lot at the start, but he was in the dressing room, he was on the bench, and building that up, getting used to the footballing environment that you would expect at a Man United or a Man City, where you're involved in it all the time. Would you say that is a better route for a young footballer than being at an academy?
Yeah, I think it depends quite a lot, because I was going to say you've got to think about Brewster. He's 17, and Woodburn as well. They're obviously not ready for to play for the first team for Liverpool. I mean, I know Woodburn's been on the bench, he's had a couple of stints, but they're not going to play week in, week out. And I think it's important how you sort of nature them, because do you want them playing for the under-21s? Because eventually, I know it's like men's when you're in the under-21s, but eventually you're going to want them actually getting used to men's football. So you're probably going to want them to go down the leagues. The way I'd like to do it is sort of give them a few years, sort of like test them in men's football, so maybe League Two, if they do really well there, to stick with the Championship, get them a bit of Premier League experience, maybe what Chelsea are doing with Loftus-Cheek, and then get them in the first team, because I think it's important that, although it's not their sort of standard that their potential is at, they've still got to get used to the physicality of men's football. Sometimes it corrupts them a bit, because if you go to League Two especially, it's literally hoofball, and Woodburn and Brewster are quite small characters, so maybe it's not going to benefit them as much as sort of the football they're going to be playing on the floor in the under-21s for Liverpool. But I feel like there is a point where you've got to get used to, you've got to structure them quite well, and you've got to get used to men's football. And I feel like there is a point, but you've got to be really careful about the way you do it, and there are different ways you can do it.
Yeah, I personally, I think for a player, it's better to start off lower leagues and work your way up. Because like you said, they're going to play more games at, say, a League One side than obviously in the Premiership, because they've got to work their way up first to get into anywhere near the first team, where they could be loaned out to multiple clubs. They might have the best season, they could get injured and stuff like that. And obviously with them changing clubs, different physios and stuff like that. So personally, I feel like if they start off at a small League Two club, then obviously they're learning football from a point off where it's nowhere near as big as the Premiership. Kind of thing and stuff like that. And then obviously if you're playing well, you've got more chance of starting for that League Two or League One side. And then if you're really doing well, you might get the FA Cup run, and then you can start to play against your Man United, your Chelsea, your Arsenal, your even Championship, and where that player can then experience that kind of football, see what it's all about. And then obviously when he's there, he would have remembered that experience and kind of replicated that, if you know what I mean. So kind of if he was at a Premiership club, he's just going to be bench warming and watching the other team play the majority of the time. Where I feel like if he was at League Two, he's going to get League Two or League One, he's going to get experience, could go on a great FA Cup run, play some quality teams, might lose to them, but he's learned valuable lessons from that, rather than being sat on a bench in the cold, wishing that he was playing football, maybe a bit upset with the manager, falling out with the manager, and then his career, unfortunately, not really spiraling to anything, or at least his full potential. Yeah,
I reckon I was going to mention Foden as well, who's at Man City, is rated quite highly. Him and Brewster are sort of arguably the standouts for that under-17 team. They're 17/18 now, because obviously it depends when your birthday was on what sort of youth level. It depends what sort of youth level you play at. But so say they're both 17 for sort of the sake of the argument. They could go out on loan to a League Two next year till they're 18, and then they could maybe play in the Championship at 19. Maybe they could get a year in the academy at 20 or something, or sort of stay at that level, and by 22 they might be being bedded into the first team. So 22, you've still got sort of 10 years at the top of the game. So if you do it the right way, unless they're a freak of a talent, like maybe Dele Alli, obviously he's still young, Harry Kane's still very young, or Marcus Rashford,
Rashford,
yeah, they're gonna they've got a chance to bed their way in. And when they do break into the first team, say they're 22, they're gonna have all that experience, but they're still young as well, rather than just rushing them. If you get what I'm saying.
Yeah. I mean, I think the only worrying part about that would be like injury.
Yeah.
And I mean, like, you can get injured anywhere, but if you keep bouncing to different clubs and you get injured, that's loads of different, like, medical teams that you'll be working with.
Yeah.
And so, like, obviously, it's kind of like you won't be advancing as fast as if you were at a club, say, like, for the sake of the argument, Rochdale. You were there, you've come through the youth team at Rochdale, you've gone and done bits, and then you've been sold on, a bit like Jamie Allen, someone like that, who's now playing for Burton Albion. Doing bits, trying to advance his career. He's still very young, and then hopefully progress on for him. It's kind of like, I feel like if you start off young, you kind of learn the game, you learn how to respect the game. Obviously, you deal with worse referees, and you know how to react in that situation. Because as well, not just the referees, but the whole facilities as well. If you're brought into the world of football where you're getting heated leather seats in the changing rooms, you're getting the grass is going to be heated underneath, it's going to have the top drainage, the best pitch, you're going to easily pack out about 50,000 fans in a game. It's not like you're going to get all that. When you play lower teams in the league, when you get loaned out, you could be really arrogant and be like, I'm not playing for these because the facilities back home are much better. You know what I mean? Like, because a lot of players, like, very big-headed and stuff like that, are very arrogant football players, and believe that because they were brought up in an academy, say, them working their way up, also, like, maybe might form them bad in the sense of a personality and stuff like that, and their attitude to football.
Yeah.
I hate to go back to Dele Alli, but let's have a look at his time at MK Dons. So in 2011-12 and 2012-13, in total, he only made 7 appearances in all competitions, scoring 1 goal. In 2013-14 and 14-15, he made 81 appearances in all competitions, scoring 23 goals. So effectively, he's had a 2-year spell in the first team at MK.
Yeah.
So could you say that maybe a 2-year loan deal at, say, mid-table League One club or wherever the quality of this player is, at a solid, mid-table League One club or Championship or League Two, could you say that would be better? And just say to them, have this player for 2 years, and instead of saying you have to play him, or you'll have to pay this, or forcing them almost to play him.
Just like treat him as your own sort of thing.
Yeah. You have him for 2 years, and you play him when you want to, right? And if it's not working out end of season, he can come back. So if he only plays 15 games in the first season and isn't very good, but plays 40 games the next season and smashes it, that's good. But if that was a 1-year deal, would he have gone back? Probably not, and he might have gone, right, he's not good enough for League One, let's put him to League Two, and they kind of get pushed down. But if you're almost forced to have them, kind of like MK, they obviously knew he was a good player, but if he was loaned, would he have been forced to go up to the Championship? Look at someone like Adam Armstrong, who in 2015-16 did really good for Coventry.
Yeah.
Then he went up to Barnsley, I think it was, didn't do too good, and now he's at Bolton.
Yeah, struggling again.
He would have probably, in hindsight, would have been better off staying in League One.
Could you say that about Connor Washington as well? Smashed it for Peterborough, went up, and is not doing much in Championship.
Yeah, it's hard to, obviously, hindsight, looking back, saying, yeah, you could have done this, you could have done that, but I think, in my opinion, it's almost the best way to bring up players is to not loan them out, but to have them at lower league clubs. So
I definitely agree with the 2-year idea.
Yeah.
Like I fully
a 2-year loan deal.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that.
The problem is, if he's not good enough, you can cut that loan deal short. But if you've brought him up from, say, being 11 to being 18, you spent all that time. You've got to give them a chance. Kind of similar to Renato Sanchez at Swansea. They've spent $8 million to bring him in for a 1-year loan deal. That's almost like he's their youth product because they've put so much into him, not in time but in money, that they've got to give him a chance. If that was a 21-year-old youth player, say, who they just signed off, dropped out of Man City's academy and they've signed him for a free, would they have given him in time? Would they just said, right, he's not been very good in his first couple of games, we're going to put him in the under-21s and leave him there until his contract expires? But because they've had to put time and or money into a player, you kind of have to say, we've got to give it a go. So if you give it a go with 10 players and 5 of them work out as first team players, 5 of them aren't, that's good. But if you kind of try and cherry pick them, you kind of might miss out on talent, and it's kind of a bit interesting and a bit of a kind of, you've got to give time to players. I'm saying.
Yeah, I don't think your idea is a bad shout. I mean, I know 2-year loan deals are a thing. I think 3-year loan deals, I've seen a couple of them as well, but I think they are a thing. But it's all about how the club use it, and I feel like a lot of teams don't actually use the loan system very effectively, as much as they should do. So as much as I love to talk about that sounds really sarcastic. It wasn't. That was a genuinely really good chat. But we're going to have to move on. Still on the same subject, Danny, we've got obviously the under-17s doing well. They could do well on Saturday. They could win the World Cup at under-17s. Well, if they won the under-20 World Cup this year as well, England. So where the bloody hell does it go wrong when you get to senior team?
Again, I mean, could we say management?
Mm-hmm.
But to be honest, I'm like any other England fan. I'm stumped because when you look at that team on paper, you think, apart from a few players, like, I'm not 100% sure on Joe Hart. Quite shaky at points. Obviously, doesn't play for Man City anymore. Everyone thought that was very controversial, but it's turned out to be a very good decision. Personally, I don't feel confident within Joe Hart. We saw in the Euros the free kick that Bale scored. I mean, I know he put a lot of power behind it, but Joe Hart essentially pussied away from it. But looking at the team, apart from that, looking at the team, and you see players like Harry Kane, Dele Alli, Marcus Rashford, Daniel Sturridge, you've got a quality side of players, and they were just like mainly attacking midfielder players. Like, you've still got the rest of the team that are mad good, and I just don't understand where it goes wrong. Yeah. Maybe there's not great chemistry within the team. Maybe there's something that we don't actually know about. You know, maybe within the dressing room, some people don't get along with each other, but play with each other because they have to.
Yeah, I think it could be down to, there's a few ideas. First of all, as much as we hate the international break, I know international managers don't get a lot of time with their team. So, for example, Southgate's not gonna have much of a chance to sort of instill his philosophy. But then again, every international break's the same. So why are we losing to Iceland when we've not got our we've not got our time to gel? But then neither have they at the same time. Also, I feel like if you look at other national teams, a lot of the players are playing abroad. And for England, we have hardly anyone except for like Joe Hart here and there who goes on loan abroad for a year. So it's a completely different game abroad. So we're not learning Spanish football, we're not learning the German football, the French football, etc. And I also think maybe it is about the chemistry thing, like you say, because if you look at Italy, they're famous back three under Antonio Conte. All three of them at the time playing at Juventus, like what I was going to say. Yeah, one of the best defences in Europe / the world. I don't know why people always say Europe, because if it's Europe, it's usually the world. So they've got that defensive line, while we've got John Stones at Man City, Michael Keane at Everton, and then like Gary Cahill at Chelsea. So it could be that, it could be management. It's a number of things, but I'm just sort of hoping that looking at the team, like the under-17s, the under-20s as well. I know the under-21 struggled slightly under Southgate, but they're a decent set of players. I'm just hoping that they're going forward, they're not gonna fall. But
I mean, that is definitely a very valid point that you mentioned. Sorry to interrupt, but going back to the fact that with our England players, I didn't actually think about this, but we don't have players that play in different leagues abroad.
Yeah.
So they're only playing the box standard Premiership football.
Yeah.
They're not actually getting time to learn the Spanish football, the German football, and stuff like that. Where, you know, Wales, they've got the likes of Gareth Bale, who's playing Spanish football, has got a clear understanding of the Spanish football, and if needs be, they can change up their playing style through the knowledge of Gareth Bale. And I feel like we lack that massively, thinking about it. Like, we just play the box. And the thing is, like, again, with Michael Keane, he plays for Everton, who are currently in an absolute state. And obviously his morale's going to be down. Then you've got other Premiership teams that are not doing well. And then obviously there could be, like, incidents which happen in the BPL. So say, like, I don't know, just for argument's sake, you get Michael Keane, who's salty at Daniel Sturridge because Daniel Sturridge decided to celebrate in front of him. So then them two have got a bit of bad beef. So, you know, it kind of brings the whole team, not the whole team down, but you get what I'm trying to go at here.
Yeah. No, I get you.
Obviously, like, if players were in different leagues, they wouldn't be there. I'm not saying this is the actual problem, but this could be, like, a problem where in a game there might be some things said between players that actually play with each other in the England squad, and then when it comes to the England squad, it's really awkward between the players.
Yeah, no, I get you.
Expanding on what Lewis said before, sorry to interrupt, about the back three of the Italy side. If you look at some of the great sides over the last couple of years, you've got the Spain side that won the Euros in 2008 and 12 and won the World Cup in 2010. Most of them players, apart from maybe David Silva, I'm thinking, most of them, and maybe Torres, played for Barcelona or Real Madrid. So they will probably analyse each other's games because they were rivals then. When you put them together, most of that team slots together. Add a couple of David Silva, Fernando Torres, and slot them in. You've got a good team. Look at the German team who won the World Cup in 2014. Most of them play for Bayern Munich. Add a couple of Borussia Dortmund players, a couple of other German league players, and then Ozil and stuff like that. You've got the good team, and they're also, most of the team is Bayern. You add a couple of players, and there you go. You've got that team. What do England have? Because England, the Premier League is so competitive, instead of having two teams that are so competitive, like you've got Real Madrid and Barcelona, Dortmund and Bayern, England, you've got 5 teams, Man City, Man United, Chelsea, Arsenal, Tottenham. Yes, Arsenal are not having a good time at the moment, but they've all got world-class players. So trying to mix 5 teams together with English players is hard.
Yeah.
It's much harder than trying to slot 2 teams together. Do you kind of get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So maybe say, the Premier League is so competitive, we should have the best national team. If it wasn't so competitive, yes, it wouldn't be as good of a league. But maybe in 10 years' time, if we kind of made it less competitive, if you could theoretically do that, maybe then England would have a better national team.
Yeah, I think you can also make a case for, like, I know, like, when Liverpool won the Champions League and when Man United and Chelsea won it recently, but I think you can make a case for saying, like, because it's so competitive, and then you're like, Man City are great because they've just won the league in the most competitive league. Like, maybe they're just like maybe not this year, but they're just maybe generally not as good as the Bayern. So that's like, when it comes to the international stage, like, the players just aren't as good. It just the players just look good comparatively to what league they're in as well. Talking about the best players in the world, we're going to move on now to the World 11 that was announced the other day. The FIFA Pro World 11. Maybe sort of controversial. I'll just read it out now. 4 defenders, obviously a goalkeeper, 3 midfielders and 3 forwards. So you've got Buffon, we've got Dani Alves, Sergio Ramos, Leonardo Bonucci, Marcelo, Iniesta, Modric, Cruz, Messi, Neymar and Ronaldo. So, Nathan, general thoughts on that team as a whole? It's a decent team?
I'd say probably about right. I think there's also kind of players you've got to stick in there, because maybe not because of the year they've had, but because of the years they've had recently.
Yeah.
So, maybe not the... See, is it almost the FIFA World 11 of the players who are playing now and are in their prime, not the players who have had the best 2017, the best 2016, best 2015. I don't think he can argue too much. I think Buffon, he's getting into his 40s now, is it?
Yeah,
he'll be 40
nearly
come
40,
end of the season.
Nearly 40, yeah.
And I think he said he's going to stay on for the World Cup in Russia end of the season. You could maybe make a case for Neuer, maybe, but De Gea, I think definitely you could make a good case for him. Again, Ronaldo, Messi, Neymar, they're always going to be in there for as long as they're in their prime because of the players they are, especially Ronaldo, Messi, and Neymar.
Especially the players they are, because Real Madrid aren't had their best time at the moment.
Yeah, exactly. So Neymar, with his 200 million transfer, he's got to be put in there almost because of the big name player that he is. And I'd say probably I'd probably say that's a pretty fair team there.
Yeah. So is there anyone, Danny, that you think is maybe a bit lucky to be in there? So, for me, someone that really sticks out is Iniesta, because I reckon there's a couple of players in there that could probably be in there over Iniesta. So I think Kroos and Modric are fair enough, but maybe Iniesta, you may be looking at even Casemiro to make it a midfield trio from Real Madrid, or maybe Busquets even from Barcelona. But like Nathan said, Iniesta's maybe in there for his namesake because of what he has been and what he's won. Do you think he is a bit lucky? And in general, do you think anyone else is a bit lucky for that sort of status thing rather than how good a year they've actually had?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you just have to look at it and you realise that the players in there are in there because of who they are as a player, not because of their season. So definitely Iniesta is very, very, very lucky. But then again, if we are going off the fact of who they are as a player rather than the season they've had, you look at his past and you think, well, fair enough. It depends what they're going off. Because obviously if they're going off this season, which they're obviously not, because there's some players in there that you're thinking, no, that shouldn't be legit. And maybe Buffon was a bit lucky to get in. Nathan said, David De Gea is arguably the best goalkeeper in the Premiership, in my opinion. He is the best in the Premiership. And he definitely rivals for best in the world. So maybe, Buffon though, I've got a soft spot for him. I think he's a top keeper. Yeah,
I was really gutted when Juventus lost the Champions League final last season because Buffon
against
was
Real Madrid.
Yeah, it was like Buffon was finally going to win it and then he didn't.
Yeah, I overall, personally, I'm happy with that team, and I think fair enough. The question obviously you ask is, well, why is De Gea not in there? Arguably one of the best goalkeepers, but then again, a lot of people have a soft spot for Buffon, and fair enough, deserves it. Retiring soon, so De Gea's got plenty of time to get in it. So yeah, I've got really no problems with it.
Yeah, staying with you, Danny. Sort of, we were talking about the Premier League a little bit when we were talking about England, but do you think because of how there isn't really a dominant team in the Premier League? Leicester City won the league 2 years ago, for goodness sake. Do you think that sort of lets down a few players from the Premier League that could have fought their way in? For me, I would have had De Gea in there over Buffon. I know you probably wouldn't, but you could make a case for Kane over Neymar, maybe. But do you think maybe even De Bruyne over Iniesta? But
I was going to say De Bruyne for Iniesta. I was going to say that, but I didn't know if it was too controversial or not.
Yeah, no. Do you think the fact that the Premier League is so it lacks that dominant team, and it obviously struggles at the international stage, which isn't necessarily important? But do you think England, that is, do you think that lets down the players from the Premier League, or do you think it's just the fact that that's just how it is, and that's it is a fair choice?
Yeah, because if you look at the players that have been picked, you've got your Barcelona and your Real Madrid. They're the two most competitive teams in Spanish football. Then if you move over to PSG, they're one of the best teams in France. Obviously, you've got Monaco, and then you go to Bundesliga, you're Bayern Munich, stuff like that. So that's sound. And then you've got Italian football, Juventus. So in the Premiership, you've got, as we've mentioned before, you've got United, you've got City, you've got Chelsea, you've got Arsenal, you've got Tottenham. It's so competitive that nobody really sticks out. If you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, obviously players stick out to us, but like if you were thinking like overall, you know, you could say, oh, Rashford's doing well, you know, popping him in, but then Gabriel Jesus is doing well. So why is he not? You know what I mean? So there's a lot of competition within the Premiership that, you know, it's kind of hard to really judge upon. Like, you know, you look at David De Gea doing absolutely top in the Premiership, but then again, other keepers around the world are doing great bits as well. So I think it's certainly the fact that there is more competitive teams in the Premiership where there's not like your standout players where you're like, you know, like it's not just two teams that pretty much run the BPL. It's always changing.
Yeah. Maybe now the fact that arguably the best coaches is some of the best coaches in the world. So Guardiola, Mourinho, Pochettino, Conte. Maybe now that they're all sort of settled in the Premier League, we might see a few Premier League players in there next year. De Bruyne obviously on fire right now, Kane on fire as well. But I just want to do a little thing quick. You two on the channel for the first time. You each got 20 seconds. I don't know what your view is, either of you. It could be the same, could be different. Ronaldo won the award for the best male player. 20 seconds each. Why Messi's better than Ronaldo, or why Ronaldo's better than Messi? Danny, you first go.
I don't even know. Like, I sit in the middle of the fence for these two.
Really?
Yeah, like when people say who do you prefer, Messi or Ronaldo, legit, like my opinion always changes. Like, to be honest, I think they're both fantastic football players.
Mm-hmm.
Happy Ronaldo won it. To be fair, I don't know what it is about Ronaldo. Just do like him as a football player. I don't know what it is about him. Just do like Ronaldo. But like I say, like both players deserved to be in there with a shout, and obviously I would have been happy if Messi got it. Would have been happy if Ronaldo got it. I'm not fussed.
So a little bit over the time there, but like you say, you didn't have a clue, so we'll let you off. Nathan, your turn. Off you go.
I would say that it's hard to compare Messi and Ronaldo. They're both really good players, but it's hard to compare them, even though they are a similar age in the same era, in the same league. It's hard to compare the two players because of the way that the footballing body works. That some players might start getting better really earlier. Some players might get worse later on. So it's hard to compare them until they've both retired. Having said that, they're both really good players. I don't really care who's better, Messi or Ronaldo. I just say watch them and enjoy them while they're still playing.
It's a very, very good point. I'm a Messi guy, but I think Ronaldo's probably going to win the Ballon d'Or this year because of what he's won. Obviously, won the Champions League, etc. And then it might go down to a fifth year, maybe when they're both still at their peak. Not a fifth year, but sort of a fifth. Who gets the fifth one, and then maybe that'll decide. But I think I'd say Messi because he's sort of. I prefer a style of play more like the trickery rather than the physical side of it that Ronaldo's got. And also because when you sort of discuss the best of all time, you don't often hear Ronaldo in that chat. And probably because Messi maybe is better in this era, but obviously you could say that for Messi as well. So it is hard, but I'm more of a Messi guy myself. But I think that does bring an end to the podcast. A very, very good chat, guys.
Enjoyed it.
Obviously, like I said at the start, you two from the League One podcast. Nathan, I think you're the one that's going to be sort of moving the channel forward predominantly. So do you want to just give a little chat about what you do over there?
Right.
Here we go.
So, the Bible. You're in the Bible, aren't you, Danny?
I am in the Bible.
He's in the Bible. Wise
in the extras.
Basically, for those who don't know, Danny has recently got a job. So he's working at New Look now, and he's pulling all the girls there.
I wish.
Anyway, he doesn't have the time to... He can record, but regards editing stuff, it's a lot harder, and Danny did a lot of the production stuff. So he isn't leaving in that sense. He's just not going to be doing as much stuff with it. He might still record it sometimes if he's got a bit of a spare moment. But what's going to be happening is I'm going to be rotating between a couple of people for the next couple of weeks and just seeing how it goes, see how the views go, see if we can keep it going. But Danny isn't leaving, so he's not. He's not leaving.
I've still got my cup.
He's still got his cup.
Still got my cup.
So you got to buy me one of them actually now for taking over. So he might still come on every now and again. If he don't come on, he might send in a little video or something talking about Rochdale or something. And he'll still be active and stuff like that. So it's not like he's going on to another project or leaving the whole kind of thing. He just doesn't have as much time as he used to. And we're just going to keep moving forward with this and just see what happens. But there should be. See, the thing is now we're recording this on Wednesday. This will be going up on Friday. Am I right?
Yeah, Friday. Yeah.
So there may be one up today. Might have already been up. You might have already watched it and come over to here. But we'll have to see. It's a possibility. See, I've got to do the editing now, so I'll have to work out that. But there should be one up on Friday. Hopefully.
Lovely.
Hopefully. Fingers crossed.
Lovely. So
80%, I'd say.
Okay, 80%. So, yeah, they are our partners. Very, very good. Been on there a couple of times myself. Obviously, I'm a Gillingham fan. So, at the minute, we're in League One. Might not last much longer, but obviously, there's a long, long way to go. So Nathan's going to be taking over. Obviously, Danny's a part of it. And then a few of us going to be helping out every now and again. I'm going to be helping out every now and again. Obviously, helping out the partners. They're going to be over here. Hopefully, get you two back on because I really, really enjoyed it today. So,
Can I just point out the partnership or anything isn't ending, so it's not ending or anything. It's going to keep continuing until further notice. We'll say for the next 4 weeks until
the channel just dies.
I'm the Vichy Wellens of the League One podcast, essentially taking over. Danny's John Sheridan just lost 5-1 to Rotherham. I'm taking over. Going to beat Peterborough, beat Bury, and beat Rochdale in a couple of weeks.
Lovely job, Lee.
And Giles.
So more of that exciting banter on the League One podcast in the description. So individually, Nathan, where can the lovely viewers find you?
Well, they can find me on Twitter at NathanOAFCO1. I still need to change that, to be honest. But you want to keep up with League One podcast at League One podcast with the one, and want to follow Danny on Twitter for his tweets once a week at Danny Wiseman 246.
You just doing that for me.
There we go. He's just done it for him. So,
I don't need to speak.
Anyway, yeah. Thanks for coming on, Danny, as well, because you didn't get to talk. So, cheers.
Yeah, exactly. If you do want to find me, I'll be in Manchester. New look. Come over and
give him a good tip. So, yeah, lovely job, Lee. If you did enjoy the podcast, please remember to like and subscribe. Hope you're happy. The podcast's back. Going to be getting them back every Friday now. More of a structure. Recording on the Wednesday. Up on the Friday. Also, shout out to a different Nathan who sort of rebranded our graphics for the podcast. Obviously, new nice cover card you can see and a new thumbnail as well. So shout out to him. He also does a lot for the channel, so doesn't really get much mention. But there we go. If you did enjoy, please remember to like, subscribe, comment down below. We'll see you next time. Goodbye.